Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here, Jeff, and have a conversation.
I am as well, and this is a very important and timely conversation. But before we get into it, what would you like to share with the listeners who may not know who Jonathan Mast is? What do you want to tell them about what you do, all that?
Well, nothing that exciting. I'm just another average guy, but I happen to be really passionate about AI. And part of that becomes because I've got ADD, and that means that I constantly get caught with bright, shiny objects, and I'm going, "Ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that?" And AI lets me do things faster. And when I can do things faster, there's more that gets done between those squirrels that show up in my life. And that means I get a lot more done. And that makes me more productive, and I can add more value. So all the way around, I love it. And after having spent about 16 years in the digital marketing business, I decided that while I still do a lot of digital marketing with AI, what I really decided is I wanted to really help educate people, because there's so many fear mongers out there about AI is evil. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to do this. Oh my goodness, the end of the world is coming. It's Terminator all over. No, it's not. There's so much opportunity, and I'm really trying to be that positive voice, talking about practical, simple things that we can all do, whether we're business owners, whether we're employees, or whether we're retired, or even students. I just finished a podcast earlier today talking to a bunch of teachers about how their students can be using that. So my goal is to help people figure out how easy AI is to use and how it can make our lives better.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm writing down a couple of notes, teachers and students. I want to come back to that because I have some questions to get your take on that. I'm looking at your LinkedIn bio, and it says AI consultant and coach, helping businesses and organizations leverage artificial intelligence for growth. How do you feel? I think you and I mentioned this before, perhaps. How does anybody become a AI consultant or coach, or dare I say self-described expert? Like, because this space is like so new. So I just want to unpack this first, because I know you see a lot of people selling stuff, courses, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Like I saw one, believe it or not, was an AI certified real estate agent. And I was like, what the hell is that? Right. So what's your general take, at least early stages of this, where we need to get through this phase?
We're in the Wild West right now, and that means anybody can put a shingle out and say, I'm an expert at AI stuff, and it's hard in many cases to validate whether they are or not. Here's the good news. The people that really are good at it, it's really easy to see what they're doing, and you'll see they have tons of content out there. They've got Facebook groups like I have. They've got programs they're offering, whatever that makes sense. They've got tons of testimonials. If they're legit, they're going to be very easy to prove. If they're not legit, and unfortunately, I see a lot of that. I've got a large Facebook group, Jeff. I've got about 175,000 entrepreneurs in there. Almost daily, I get somebody saying, I want to be an AI consultant. What prompts would I use to help me do that? And I'm like, if you don't know how to prompt AI, you can't be a coach and consultant. So, I mean, it happens all the time. It is like any other discipline. If you want to be good at it, you need to immerse yourself in it. There are not really any credible certifications available at this moment that I'm aware of. There may be one I'm not. But we see two things. We see experts out there, and I will be a self-proclaimed one, I guess. I have friends that are also, and peers that are great at it, that are really good at what they do. And we can all say we're certified. I've even taken some certification courses. They don't really mean anything, because the certification bodies aren't, I'm not going to say they're bad, but they're not legit. It's not a university. It's not something. On the other hand, we've got the universities and stuff that are trying to do these certification courses, but with all due respect to higher education, it's a money grab. They aren't, they're teaching things that are already a year old. And in the field of AI, a year old is like when I was 18, and I'm 55 now. So, it's another generation away. But higher education isn't realizing that. So if I can go get something from an accredited institution, whatever I've learned is probably very hypothetical and very old. So it's a tough spot to be in. If you want to be an expert, start prompting and immerse yourself in the technology. I've literally written tens of thousands of prompts, and that's why it's one of the things I do now for a living. When people go, how do I get AI to do this? Well, here, let me show you. Because I've failed, as Thomas Edison said, a whole lot of times.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a good description. I was going to ask you what makes somebody great at AI. I think that's one aspect of it is, prompt the hell, like you said, tens of thousands of prompts is one. So that, and by the way, how does that help you get better at understanding AI?
I'm going to say it's the same reason that, let's say I'm in any position that involves communicating with coworkers. The first day on a job, that is the hardest thing to do because I don't know anybody. I don't know who they are. I don't know how to communicate with them well. I don't know what their buttons are. It's very difficult. But after I've been on a job for 3 years, I don't have to even think about it. It comes natural. I know who Jeff is. I know who everybody is. I know their buttons. I know who your wife is. I know anything that comes up, your family, whatever, I can do because I know it all.
Yeah.
And that's happened because we've communicated a lot over the last couple of years. And we can expedite that with AI because really when we talk about AI, what we're doing, they call it prompting, but it's really just communicating. I often compare it to texting. If you've texted your family or friends or coworkers today, it's the same thing we do with AI. We communicate with it. But we need to practice that, just like a public speaker. The first time you get up and do public speaking, maybe a better example is video. You and I both know a lot of people that do video marketing. That first video that you do, it sucks every time. Not just for some of us. It sucks for all of us all the time, the first one. But if we do 100 of them, guess what? We're a lot better. And that's like anything. I just think we need to use it in our daily lives, and that helps us become proficient at it.
Do you like the description of AI? Let's just take most of my time's been on ChatGPT and Gemini. And I know we're going to talk about some other ones that most people, including myself, aren't that familiar with. But are you comfortable with the term digital assistant for AI?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a pretty good description.
Yeah, and it's like just the example you just gave of, you're essentially having a relationship with AI. I think that's the first perhaps shift people need to consider, is because they've been approaching it too much as in, garbage in, garbage. Like, I'm just going to give it a basic input.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to expect it's going to be wildly intelligent and know everything. You know what I mean? Like do you find that part of the biggest frustration? It's funny. I asked this in a presentation I did last week, and I'm like, how many, 75 people in the room. How many people here use AI, right? Various hands. How many people are frustrated with the output? Very few hands went up. And I'm like, I know you're all lying right now. Okay.
Exactly.
Because isn't the place people need to start at is getting better at the prompting or conversation?
Yeah, it's no different than, if you're in a relationship with anybody. When I first met my wife, that first date, I put on a good facade that I thought I knew how to talk, but I didn't. We've now been married for 21, 22 years, and we can communicate much, much better than we did 23 years ago when we met. And that's just because we've got more experience with it. It's nothing different. We may have changed, but it's really about that experience and knowing how to do it, and it's having that experience.
And I have to say, and we're going to link everything up in the show notes to your Facebook group, which is, I've learned, I think, more in just a few weeks that I've been exposed to you and your Facebook group and the content that goes through there than I have in a year of using AI. So we're going to link that up. It's AI ChatGPT prompts for entrepreneurs. It's a Facebook group. It's massive. It's awesome. I was already able to swipe a bunch of useful prompts that saved me tons of time.
Awesome. Love to hear that.
So back to your point about, like, how do you know somebody's good at it? It's because you're prolific. And I think that's the word I think of with you, is you're prolific.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're sharing, like, you're not doing the, remember what was it? AI PRM? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that still
I remember that plugin. Yeah. It's still there. I haven't used it in over a year, but yeah, it's as soon as they went to a paid model, not that I mind paying, I pay for a lot of AI models, but I didn't find it had enough value for me to pay for. And that's something we can talk about. I'm not a big proponent of having these lists of prompts, because by the time I find the prompt I want to use and then change that prompt to fit what I wanted, or realize it wasn't what I wanted, so go back and try to find another one, I could have just used a framework and I could have written a great prompt in 30 seconds. And I'd rather do that.
Yeah. That's the key thing we want to talk about, because I know you're big on frameworks, right?
I am very big on those. Yeah.
And let's start this in perhaps sequential order, because most of the people listening to this have had probably a toe in the water experience with AI so far. Most of it's probably ChatGPT or Gemini, maybe. I got a few outlier friends who are using Claude. Yeah, Perplexity is one I only heard about through you. So I'm going to make a couple notes here for myself. We'll definitely cover all of this. But
Awesome.
let's say my audience is mortgage originators and some real estate agents. And of course, they're trying to figure out, how do I start using this to save time, have some efficiencies, be more consistent in my content output? Any low-hanging fruit you want to go to first there?
First and foremost, in both of those, you guys, everybody needs more customers. And the best way in my mind to get customers in either of those, you have to build trust. I'm not hiring you as a real estate agent or as a loan originator for me if I don't trust you. And so I need to trust you. The best way to do that is for you to create content that answers my questions. So if I'm a realtor, I can go to Google and I can find 100 questions that every homeowner is asking about real estate sales. If I'm a loan originator, I can do the same exact thing. It's not a big deal. Answer every one of those questions. Do a short form video, do a social media post, and let AI help you do that. If you're not comfortable on camera, you don't know what to write, no problem. Literally go to AI. We can train ChatGPT using custom instructions about who you are, what your role is, what your name is, how to get a hold of you, all that. And we can say, so one of the most important questions maybe as a real estate agent I get is, should I stage my home or not stage my home? I don't know if that's the one or not. I'm just picking that off. Well, guess what? I can now go to ChatGPT and say, I want to write an engaging and viral social media post about staging your home and the importance of it. And here are the 3 things that I believe as a real estate agent and I want to express to my audience. Go. And it's going to go ahead and write depending on the data it has, it's going to write a good post. We're going to go back and forth a little bit, but in 5 minutes, I'm going to have an amazing social media post. Then I can say, great, now I also want to do a short form video, like an Instagram reel or TikTok or something like that. Write me a voice only video script to the same topic. Boom, 12 seconds later, I've got that voice script. Grab my phone, looking for it, don't know where it is. There it is. Grab my phone, upload that transcript to my phone, and now I hold my phone out in front of me and I go, have you ever wondered whether you need to be staging your home or not? And I answer that question, and I post that on social media. I post that on YouTube. I post that on TikTok. I post that everywhere that's available. And when you do that, you don't have to spend a penny. If you do that once a day for 90 days, you will be so far ahead of your competition because nobody else is willing to give it that consistency. And the key is you can use AI don't use AI to create the video. You can, you do the video, but use AI to create the script. Use AI to write the social media post. And now that's literally including recording the video, using something like CapCut or Caption on my phone to edit it and post it and everything else. That's 20 minutes a day. If that generates you and makes you the best known real estate agent in your area after 90 days, would you invest 20 minutes a day for 90 days to do it? I would.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Let's go a little bit deeper. How about the common or frequent objection, and I've seen this as well, is, it doesn't sound like me. It's using the same unlock, unleash, right? All those AI type
absolutely.
words. How do we not have it sound like a robot? I know this is, probably another softball for you, but yeah, what's your answer to that?
Well, great question. And it's actually one I answered with the teachers, because when I was talking to the teachers earlier today, like I mentioned, they're all like, but we can always tell. And I'm like, if you give me a topic and give me 20 minutes, I will write an essay that you can't tell was written by ChatGPT. And they're like, how? And I'm like, I simply trained it and I know what things to ask it. And so you train the models. And the easiest way to do it, Jeff, is just go out and go to a site called 16personalities.com, take their personality test. It's going to give you, it's a Myers-Briggs test. It's going to give you 4 letters at the end that you are such and such. I happen to be what's called an ENTP. Now, when I have AI write for me, I just say write from the perspective of an ENTP, or even simpler, I'm an ENTP at the end.
Really?
It has libraries of information about what that personality type is. And based upon that, it will create content that reflects my tone and style. And it's just hugely, hugely valuable. There's a lot more we can dig into than that, but that's the simple, that'll get you 80% of the way there in 10 minutes. Just go take that test, use that code, and it will now sound, your wife might know it's not you, but nobody else is going to know it's not you.
How do you like that compared to, back to training the GPT, such as uploading transcripts of previous content or things like that?
That's better. The more time you can take, but I do both in conjunction. So, if you've got like podcasts like this that we've got, if I take my transcript and I would upload that as a document and say, hey, here's Jonathan speaking, it will learn based upon that. But even there, I'm going to ask it to analyze that transcript. I'm going to ask it to analyze that blog post, my social post, whatever I'm uploading, so that it gets my tone and style. The other thing we can do is, if you're out there and, if you look behind me, I've got a bunch of books. If I pick one of those authors of those books and say, I want to write in their style,
right, it
will do so.
Yes.
And it will sound much less like AI as a result of that. Exactly. The last part's really simple. You can't just copy and paste. You've got to proofread because it uses words like delve and other things like that I can't even think of right now, that despite our best efforts, and even though I use some of those words, we don't want to use as we're writing content anymore because it's now become an AI flag.
Right. Yeah, and it's becoming more apparent when people are just cutting and pasting AI content because you can see those same words repeated over and over again.
Yeah. Yep.
Unlock.
Absolutely.
I mean, the two big ones I see is unlock, discover, even though I know those are like copywriting 101, good words to use, which, by the way, let's geek out here for a second. I've definitely done and used the author thing multiple times. Like I've used, the best copywriters, John Caples, David Ogilvy, Gary Halbert, right? And I'm asking it to pull from that to give me different examples of headlines and copy on each of those.
Absolutely.
And then what I do is I say, okay, combine the best of all three right now to give me that output. So that's a cool little tip. Just this morning, as a matter of fact, I was writing a script example, and I don't know if you know Phil M. Jones, exactly what to say. If you heard of him? Yeah. So I asked it to use his style and tone in this script and overcoming an objection about this new buyer's broker agreement situation. And that's where it gets really amazing and not sounding like everybody else, and actually, like, imagine like back in the day, right? What did we used to have to do? We had to go to like a Tom Hopkins seminar or read the book or whatever it was. And we're like, we'll practice and learn the scripts. And now it's got this database of all this where you can, if it's in a written format, right? Now you're like, oh my God, I can get some of the best script writing, sales training, all that stuff in a matter of moments.
Oh yeah. And I always tell people, if it's a book in your library, it probably knows everything in that book already. Now, it's not going to regurgitate it to you page per page because it's been programmed not to do that. But if we're talking frameworks, which I'm big on, and so I want to pick an author that's described a framework or something like that, all I have to do is reference the author and the framework, and it knows what it is. I don't have to educate it on it. It'll now follow that because it understands what it is.
Okay, so speaking of framework, let's tease the audience a little bit on frameworks when it comes to getting the better output from GPT. What are some frameworks you can provide?
Well, I believe in a really simple one. It's 4 steps. I call it the perfect prompting framework because I'm humble. No, I'm just kidding. But it's super simple. The key is we need to treat AI much like, Jeff, if you and I were going to be collaborating on a project. What would I do? I'd start by giving you relevant information about that project, right? So I'd give you background information. I would then also make sure that I told you what my question was. And most importantly, I'd probably say, hey, and by the way, Jeff, if you have any questions, ask. What happens is most people go in and they go, I want to write a social media post. I'm a realtor. Or maybe I want to write a social media post about staging a home, and that's all they write. And they get it out and they go, well, that's not very good. I mean, that's just not that accurate. On the other hand, if they would start and say, you are an expert home staging consultant or real estate consultant or anything like that, and I want to write an engaging and viral social media post about the importance of staging a home when you're selling it. Notice how I'm giving it much more information.
Right.
I'm a realtor in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I want my audience to know that I believe that staging a home will increase its value by X percent. Maybe I've got studies and I can say it's going to get you 7% more. Then please write that social media post for me. So we've done step 1, which is tell it who it should be. Step 2, give it the background information. Step 3, your question. And then step 4, which I think is the most important. Oh, no, by the way, Jeff, before you write this, ask me any questions you have. And that last part is so critical because oftentimes we don't know what information we should give. If you and
Yeah.
I are collaborating on a project, I don't necessarily know what you know and what you don't know. I don't know how much to give. It's same with ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. But if I say, ask me any clarifying questions, and I've forgotten, which by the way, I forget what to give it all the time. Now it just says, oh, by the way, Jonathan, in order to give you the best response, I need these 3 questions answered. I can choose to skip them and I'll get the so-so response, or I can answer them and I'll get an amazing customized response exactly on what I want. So step 1, tell it who it is. Step 2, give it background. Step 3, ask your question. And step 4, say, ask me any clarifying questions. That's it.
Okay.
All goes
Yep.
together in one prompt. You'll be amazed.
Yeah. And then obviously review it for accuracy, for
Yes,
tone and
absolutely.
style of your preference. And then you may need to continue to massage it from there.
Yeah. Although I would say you will have to do far less of all of that if you ask it the right way, because it'll get that much closer. But you're right. Carry on a conversation with it. If you don't like something, you and I are collaborating on let's say we're collaborating on an event and you write something up I don't like. I'm going to say, geez, Jeff, I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. Could we try this or could we try that? You might do the same to me. You might look at a graphic at it and go, I'm not sure if I like that blue. Could we put in maybe something more purple or green or whatever your favorite color is?
Yeah.
Do that same thing with AI.
Okay, so I think this is a good trail we're going on here to utilize that prompting framework. And then I know kind of the next level, I guess, of this would be one of these 2 options, either custom instructions or custom GPTs, so that you don't have to you go wherever you want to go on either of those 2.
Well, ChatGPT has 2 great features. One of which is almost exclusive to it, which is custom instructions. And it basically allows me to upload and preload 2 key factors. One, what do I want ChatGPT to know about me? I want it to know my name. I want it to know my business, my phone number, my email address, what I do for a living, what I'm passionate about. By the way, my personality type. Those are all things I put in what I want it to know about me. Then, how would I like it to respond? And so that I can then give it ideas of how I want it to respond. One of the things I love to do is I'm not one for being very verbose, and ChatGPT has a tendency to use lots of adjectives and adverbs and to be very verbose in what it says. So I often tell it to do short and succinct, or I use a phrase called Hemingway rules. If you search that up, you'll find out something Ernest Hemingway developed, and it was a style. We talked about frameworks. It's a style that basically is say it as simply as possible. And when you just use Hemingway rules, which I have in my custom instructions, now when it creates content, instead of being super verbose, it gets to the point really fast, and that works for my ADD, and I like that. So you can fill those up. So that's custom instructions. The other one is a custom GPT. And there are multiple platforms that support this. Essentially, Jeff, this is training the GPT on your information. So just before this call, I actually got off the phone with my direct primary care provider, which is our healthcare provider. And they're what they call a DPC, direct primary care. It's a little bit different in the way it works, but super awesome. And he says, how can I create a custom GPT for our staff so that they can use it? And I said, well, it's really easy. All we're going to do is we're going to take your marketing material. We're going to take the information from your website. We're going to take your vision. We're going to take your mission statement, and we're going to upload all of those PDF documents into a custom GPT, and we're going to tell ChatGPT, you need to first respond from that batch of information. And if you don't have the answer there, then use your information. So now when they're writing maybe a social media post, or maybe they're writing an SOP, or maybe they're brainstorming because they happen to be opening up a new location, when they're doing that, and they do that within that GPT, it already knows all about their practice. It knows all about the people that work there. It knows, and I should say all, whatever you've uploaded to it. Right. A great example for most businesses would be an employee manual. If we have employees and we have an employee manual, we all know that we've given it to them. They've signed the piece of paper that said they wrote it and understand it. And we know that they didn't read it, period. Why do we know? Because the first time a question comes up, they ask us instead of going to look at that employee manual. Imagine if I took that document, that whole binder, and I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and now I gave a link to my employees and said, hey, before you ask me, would you do me a favor? Would you go to this GPT and just go ask how we handle our bereavement policy? Because it's in there. Would you ask me what we do when your third cousin's dog dies, and you want to know, does that qualify under bereavement? No, but you can find that out by searching in that custom GPT, because it's going to reflect off that data that we uploaded.
Yeah. And okay, how much have you created your own custom GPTs?
Tons of them, probably hundreds
Tons
by
of them.
now.
Well, some of them probably you use more than others because some of it was experimental, I assume.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
What would you say then would be, I mean, so you gave the employee handbook one. Can we use a custom GPT back to our original example of creating social media content or different types of content?
Yeah, no, in fact, I've got a challenge coming up after this call today that literally is about how to write a viral social media post. And part of that includes I'm giving everybody that's participating in that my custom GPT, which is literally you type in, it's all trained with what does it take to create viral worthy content? Having analyzed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of viral posts and that, what are the characteristics they share? Kind of like you mentioned when uploading your own information. What are the characteristics it shares? That's all been programmed in. And so now when it goes in, it automatically looks at that. Again, it's a framework to follow. My favorite word is on this podcast, at least. And it follows that and it creates that. So I can literally go in and type any topic I want, and it's going to create a viral worthy, I don't say viral because we don't know if everything's going to go viral, but a viral worthy post that, and again, I can do so in minutes because it's already been pre-trained. It's like having an employee on my team that's always available that is really good at writing viral social media posts. And so wherever I want to do that, I go, hey, Jeff, can you write this for me? Because you're really good at writing social media posts. But they just reside in ChatGPT and I can use them wherever I'm at.
So these custom GPTs, some people can choose to share them, right? And they become public, so to speak, if you have
Correct.
the link. Yeah. There's 8. I'm looking at my GPT right now. I've got about 8 or so different ones in there. Some of them from friends, some of them that I created. But one of the ones that I shared, and it's interesting to me. I guess it depends on what your knowledge or awareness level is. But back to that event I did last week, I showed them, this is the thread we've kind of been talking about. A friend of mine created this thing, Scott Shang, shout out to you, my man. AI, it's a simplified 9x content amplifier.
Love it.
And obviously you get what it does, but the description is, in this case, from a transcript. Now this could be podcast, YouTube, whatever. This GPT writes 2 SEO optimized articles, social media posts to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google Business, LinkedIn, and an email to send to your database. Like I literally did that. And obviously, you know, the amazing wow factor with that. And some people are just like, holy shit, like I did not know it could do that. Do you still find like to you, that's not mind earth shattering anymore, is it?
No, but I still get surprised. I mean, things come up. I have dull moments all the time. I just worked with a peer of mine, Jeff Hunter, brilliant AI guy, and he was teaching me some of the things that he does, and I'm like, duh, I never thought of that. And it's like, that's brilliant.
Right.
And thankfully I was able to do the same to him on a couple of things. But yeah, it still happens to me regularly that I'm learning things and going over things and going, man, I could have been doing that for the last 3 months and I never realized it.
Yeah, I guess the more you dive into this thing, the more, if you approach it the right way, which we've already given you kind of the framework and training it and all that kind of stuff, editing the output. So once you get through that fundamentals there, then that's where it becomes really interesting, because then the light bulbs start to go on, I think, of so many different use cases, right?
Absolutely. The more you use it, like anything else, you ever notice when you buy a car, you go to the dealership, you buy a car, you fall in love with it. And maybe in my case, it's probably a dark gray or a silver car. Man, I've never seen one so beautiful. And literally, as you're driving that car home, the 3 miles to your house, you see 4 of them.
Yeah.
It's that same thing, because all of a sudden you become more aware and you start seeing more opportunities to use that. And, you know, I use it literally all day long. I'm using it. I can't tell you how many dozens or hundreds of prompts I do in a day, because I use it to help me do all kinds of things, from writing emails to brainstorming to prepping for a podcast to whatever the case may be.
What are some of the glaring limitations that currently exist that you think we will work through?
I'm not sure we'll work through this one, but it's probably the biggest glaring limitation. And that's that I mentioned ChatGPT and other models have been trained on essentially every book in every library. If you think about it for a moment, there's books that disagree. There are authors that disagree and have written books. And it's been trained on all of those books, but nobody's told it which one to believe. So sometimes it will pull data from different sources. A good example, maybe not quite as dramatic, but if you ask it who wrote or who said this quote, a lot of times it gets confused and it may report one person one time. You try again, it'll report another person because it's been reported in different areas, different knowledge that it has, that different people, that a quote's been attributed to different people. So that's a good example of how you need, that's why we need to verify. I use a tool you mentioned briefly called Perplexity. It's an AI-based search engine to do all my validation because ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, they all have a knowledge cutoff. ChatGPT's cutoff, as we record this in August of 2024, was a year ago. It's August of 2023. So it doesn't know anything that's happened in the last year. Now, it does have web access, so if you give it an article, it could read it, but it's not a search engine, so it's not going to go out and find that. Perplexity is a search engine. So if I ask it a question, it's going to go search the web for relevant information, and then it's going to use AI to summarize it. So unlike Google, where I get 10 results and now I can spend an hour going down a rabbit hole chasing these different websites, Perplexity is going to look at those 10 websites and it's going to summarize the data for me and say, here's your answer based upon what we've got. And I can use that to validate stuff. And it works super, super well for it.
Aren't there, I thought I used a plugin in the past that actually you can connect GPT to go to the web in real time. You know if
there
that
is, yeah. So again, you can actually do it natively in GPT now. There used to be one called Web Pilot that's no longer exists because they've added it inside of ChatGPT directly. Two issues. One, again, it's not a search engine, so it's not just going to go out and search the web and find stuff for you. If I give it a blog post that I wrote, it'll go read that blog post, but it's not going to do lots of search. The other issue is that a lot of sites, especially early on, and these are a lot of the major sites, they blocked ChatGPT from having access to them because they were worried it was going to use their site for training data. As a result, let's say I'm going to pick a magazine. I don't know if it's true, but let's say I'm using Time Magazine. Chances are ChatGPT can't read anything from their website because they've blocked it. Perplexity, just being a search engine, they can read everything.
And so they've been permitted access for those reasons because they're purely search?
I'd prefer to say they haven't been blocked access as a result. I don't know if they've been permitted, but they haven't been blocked.
Fair enough. All right. So speaking of search, there's some buzz that AI is going to chip away at search, Google search. And you have any opinion on that?
Of course, yes. Yeah, I think it's going to change the way we search more than anything else. Search is still going to be wildly important, but I think the keywords are going to become less important. We're already seeing that keywords are, not that they're not important. If you're an SEO guy, don't scream at me. They're still important, but the best realtor in Grand Rapids, Michigan is now less important than it was a year ago, because when Google or anybody else is looking at it from a search perspective, they, as a real estate agent, they want to see that you're talking about lots and lots of things other than that you just have one page on your website that says you're the best real estate agent in Grand Rapids. So they want to see blog posts and videos and social posts about staging and listing and commissions and all kinds of things that surround that. Here's the funny thing. Google's not going to necessarily rank your social media posts, but it came out last year in their Justice Department filings that they had to release that were somewhat redacted, but that they're actually indexing that information to define your credibility. In other words, if I just have a blog post and I'm putting stuff out there, it may not know who I am. But if it can validate with a YouTube channel and it can validate with a Facebook and a LinkedIn profile, and they see those ties coming together and the content being the similar. And so as a real estate agent, everything I'm talking about is stuff that a real estate agent would talk about. Google then looks at it, as do other search engines, and go, wow, Jonathan's more credible because we've confirmed his expertise and his authority, and we've done that more just off of one keyword blog post.
Right. Yeah, to use the term Google authority, learned a lot about that when we're talking about Google business profiles and prominence and search and things like that. Yes, the crawlers are looking for that. But do you think people, just as a practice, are going to start using these AI tools? Perplexity, you mentioned, is a search engine. Most people aren't aware of that. So let's just say, there's some people talking about, using ChatGPT for search and typing in people's names and see what comes up. You think that's going to increase that activity?
Yeah, I mean, again, you can go to Perplexity and do that. I think, I don't think ChatGPT just announced, or OpenAI, their parent company, just announced they're now coming out with Search GPT, which is designed to compete with Google. So we're definitely going to see things. I think that, there's a lot of people that go to ChatGPT and ask it search related questions,
Yeah.
not realizing they're very limiting their responses, but it's just become very natural. And we like the way it responds to us. We like the fact that, it gives us not just websites to go look at, but it actually gives us answers back, and it saves us time.
Yeah. So the race is on, man. This is, can you imagine what it's like inside these companies? Just the discussions and the meetings of like, we've got to capture the market share now. Right?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Yeah, no, it's got to be very interesting to see the things they're talking about and to understand the things they're worried about. Yeah, I think, but to me, it's super exciting because as an entrepreneur, there's just so much opportunity and I can save so much time. And I love that.
Okay, let's do this real quick. So people have heard a few different things. They've heard ChatGPT. We mentioned Gemini, Perplexity, which we've clarified as being search. You've also mentioned Claude. How does somebody decide, my home base for using an AI tool?
If you're just getting started, first of all, make it easy. Don't overcomplicate it. You do not need a bunch of different tools. Pick one. Pick ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini from Google. Pick one of them. If you have access to one of them, whatever one you have access to is perfectly fine. Do I have preferences? Yeah. But guess what? Whatever you have access to is fine. It's like going to the car dealership, and I'm sure we're going to have different people that believe whether I should buy a Ford, a Chevy, or a Dodge. But at the end of the day, they're all going to take me down the road. They're going to take me to the store. They're going to take me to church. It's all going to work out just fine in the long run. No arguments, please. I know some of you disagree, but that's where we're at with the search engines. Are there preferences? Sure. There's people that prefer Claude. There's people that prefer ChatGPT. There's people that prefer Gemini. But any one of them will work. Start learning how to prompt it and use one tool to start off with. You can say the same thing to all the tools. You don't need to prompt differently or communicate differently, but find one that you're comfortable with. You like the user interface. It works for you. Make sure it's available on mobile because you'll find you want to use it on your phone a lot. And then just start asking it questions, start using it to brainstorm, to write that email that you go, man, I should take a few more minutes to write this than I want to take, to write that social media post, to wake up in the morning and go, oh man, I just had things change up, or maybe I'm a realtor, I just had a brand new house hit the market. How can I make this interesting? Imagine uploading the pictures that you just took of this new listing and asking ChatGPT to help you write a description based on the pictures. You can do that literally right now.
Wow. That is amazing stuff. Is the paid version of GPT worth it?
Yes. Period. End of story.
Okay. There's a couple of quotes I'm finding on your Instagram page right now. One of them is AI will change the world more than anything else in the history of mankind by Kai-Fu Lee. It seems the fact that you posted that, you are in some level of agreement with that.
I probably wouldn't agree with it to the letter, but overall, yes. I think AI is, I compare it to, we had the Industrial Revolution, we had the internal combustion engine, we then had the internet, or the PC, I missed the PC, then we had the internet. This is going to be bigger than any of them ultimately by the time we're done.
Where are we on that curve? I forget what it is, the early adopters.
Yep.
Where are we?
We're at what I would call the bottom left side. We're just getting started. We've got so much longer to go. The last stat I saw said that less than 15% of the people have even used AI. And by the way, that was a study done in North America, so US and Canada. So we're not talking third world countries that don't have computers here, but less than 15% of the people have actually used AI.
Really?
It is not too late by any means. I know I talked to somebody that he goes, I missed the wave. No, the wave is just building. We've got a long ways to go yet.
I'm trying to put this in a parallel, and we'll close out, but and share how people can connect with you. But I think of looking back to, you and I follow similar people, Gary V, Hermosi, you've got the book, and there was this time along the horizon of when these new platforms come out, like when Google Ads first came out and it was cheap, Facebook Ads when it was like everything gets saturated at some point, right? And I guess the way I'm looking at this right now, and you've had a hand in this, by the way, you should know, because you're the first person I found who provided real context around how to use AI intelligently. So hats off to you.
Thank you.
But I think we're at the similar stage as the early days. I know this sounds cheesy or cliche or whatever, but you know, the early days of the internet, man, you know, and it's just like, we're there early. This is for the listener. Like if you're, I know me, I'm trying to build a personal brand online and YouTube and all this stuff, and it's crowded and there's a lot of, so breaking through that wall of noise is hard. Well, I'm looking at this now from like, it's early stages AI, and I want to jump on it to optimize my business, my process, my life, like other income opportunities and things like that. Cause I think we're in that early stage phase. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, Gary Vee talks about the one difference is, you know, he talks about new platforms. And if you get started early, you get that extra inertia. That kind of works, but we don't know what platforms are going to take off. It doesn't, in my mind, matter. I'm very agnostic when it comes to those. But if you as an entrepreneur and a business person start using AI now, you're going to be that much further ahead of all of your competitors. And when your competitors a year from now are going, man, I guess I got to look at this AI stuff because it ain't going away. Now you can go, no shit, I've been doing this for over a year and I'm kicking your butt. Because you're going to be that much further ahead. You know, last night I had a customer of mine, a consulting client call. He was trying to figure something out. She texted me. He's like, can you just help me do this prompt? I've been working on it for 3 hours. And I said, well, first, don't work on it for 3 hours. Just text me. And literally in about less than 90 seconds, I was going to say 37, but I don't know. I was guessing. It's less than 90 seconds, though. I had rewritten it for him. I'd sent it back, and he sent me a text back 30 minutes later. He goes, you just saved me $2,500, whatever it was he was working on.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's how AI can work. I'm not special. I'm not any smarter than anybody else, Jeff, but I've written enough prompts that when it came time to show, basically put your money on the line, I was able to turn that around again in less than 90 seconds.
Yeah.
He'd spent 3 hours on it. Yeah. He's probably a better businessman than I am. He's certainly more successful than I am. But I was able to help him because I had more experience in this area. And if you do that, you're going to be able to accelerate your business in the same way. And you don't have to be an AI expert. You can just be someone that's really proficient leveraging AI to promote your business, to grow your business, and you will be ahead of most of your competition.
100%. And I do think that, you know, drafting somebody, right, to use that term, that's ahead of you, who's got experience, can help you. Yeah, help you get results, which is why you come into mind here. And I want to share with everybody like how to engage and follow you further. So you've got some resources. First of all, you mentioned the Facebook group. We're going to put a link to all your stuff in the show notes. It's going to be a link tree. It is jonathanmast.com/linktree. And that's JONATHANMAST.com/linktree. That's going to be all your key resources, you know, prompting guides. You've got an upcoming challenge. You've got these cool little things you do, these self-scribes, which are like, I was really geeking out on those for a minute. You got a mastermind, like, and you can actually, well, I don't want to abuse this, but for the people who are ready.
Oh, go ahead.
You know, you have the ability to actually schedule calls with people too. So yeah, I would advise everybody listening to it right now, at a minimum, click the link, get into his Facebook group, and then anything else you see relevant on this link tree. I think here's the key takeaway. Just like back to my little social media example, video content is the thing I often do is this, Jonathan, when I'm talking to agents or whoever, I'm like, this mobile phone that I'm holding up, like this is a new skill we needed to learn how to use. Posting content, this AI, it's another new skill and potentially has even bigger impact, will help fuel this thing actually.
It will. And again, your competition won't do it as fast as you. And if you win, you're that much further ahead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So awesome, man. I really appreciate you making the time for today. Everybody listening, you know what to do. Follow the links in the show notes, get into his group, ask questions, start to break stuff, get in there, bang stuff around, you know, GPT, whoever that AI assistant, right? She's not going to complain. She won't ask for a raise, right? All that stuff. Just put it to work.
All of the above.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, listeners, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying this podcast episode, you know what to do. There's a link in here. Leave us a review. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.